simulated last of the Old Testament prophets, giving you basically the same message that all the other prophets gave you. Uh, if you want to see this again, or any of the related videos or prophecies, or you want to see the script so as to have the links available, go to nobabies.net. And then you can scoot on here, you read this stuff if you want to. That's how to get a hold of me. And then you have the YouTube links. You can see all the shows I've done. A rather sad lot, and I think I have done more shows than I have had visitors. And here are the video scripts, and they will have your links if you decide you want to take a look at such things. Okay, the prophecy today is Globalism, Satan's Windfall. I'm a scientist when I'm not being a prophet. And I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in Satan as a prophet, but for purposes of definition, I'll say Satan would be a supernatural entity motivating humans to hatred, cruelty, violence, killing, and destruction of everything of value. Satan is totally bad, evil, the destroyer of anything you care about. As a supernatural entity, as I said, there is a question of whether there's some problem with the human mind, causes people to act as if they were in contact with something you would call Satan. It's a different question. Can't have an answer for that right now. Well, I don't. Okay, globalism is worse than satanic impulse to wars. Although globalism was worse than war, the satanic impulse to war is obvious. During a long and hideous history of humanity, war is a recurrent to abiding tragedy. It's always either there or coming soon. A generation or so ago, I was crunching numbers in my head and found that it appeared that more American soldiers had died soon after returning home from Vietnam than had died in combat. Feeling the urge to try to help, these were my contemporaries, my friends. I said, well, clearly I need to, volunteer, whatever, do something. Found an organization, asked around. Nobody else seemed to see what I could see. Not for the first time, not for the last time. After a couple of years of effort, I published something called A Wild Surmise. It was on paper. I sent it to a whole bunch of people in politics and everywhere I could think of. Anybody who might care about our veterans. I got a phone call from the CDC, Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. They said, what do you want? And I said, I wanted a study done to compare soldiers who'd been in combat to identical soldiers who had not been in combat. And he said, you mean in addition to what we're already doing? I said, yes. I got a copy of the report, and sure enough, what I had suspected, to everybody else's surprise, is absolutely true. They came home and they died, and coming home was more dangerous than going to war. So to our list of the satanic evils I just went over, there's also the horror within, our pseudo-Satan, the list of things, the satanic impulse, the impulse that looks like a satanic impulse, does to us. It also does horrible things to our insides, making life very difficult. I know a woman who fought in Iraq. Always seemed to me to be friendly, robust, wholesome, good-natured, always a grin. Never suspected anything. Then somebody slipped up behind her and said, "Boo." She burst into tears. Saw her again a few days later. You'd have suspected nothing, but there was a subtle tendency for her to stand with her back a little closer to the wall than most people would. Very subtle, matter of inch or two. Her combat experience had been as a warthog pilot. Sure, you know, very familiar machine. It's an iconic Gatling gun. There is a picture of a warthog. That's the Gatling gun. It's a whole bunch of barrels that spin so that its rate of delivery of nasty stuff is phenomenal. Generally, they use a warthog if a bunch of soldiers had got into trouble, needed some real lot of help real fast. They'd send in a warthog. Even so, even though with that noble immediate aim to save lives, well, she is troubled to this day, and if there were magic, I would wish that from time to time I could take her burden up for a day. I'm sure I could stand more than a day. All right, well, there you go. That's the bird. You can see from the fields in the background that thing is standing on its edge. And yeah, the barrels of that Gatling gun are 18 feet long. You've seen pictures of these swashbuckling World War II destroyers that, you know, big gun up front. It's not a, it's not a cruiser. It's not there to slug and accept damage, but boy, it's there to destroy ships. The barrel of that gun, or if there are two in the turret, those two guns, not less than 18 feet, more like 16. Those things throw a 4 or 5 inch shell. The Warthog doesn't throw shells that big, but throws them faster and throws a lot more. Okay, the anguish, terrible effect on a person of having to live with the memory of having tried to kill another person is well known now. It was unknown when I got started on this so many years ago. Here's a link, YouTube presentation by William Mounts. I can't vouch for all his facts. I haven't looked into them. I'm not recommending this for the facts. I'll tell you the facts right now. Yeah, killing people is horrible for you. What Mr. Mounts does better than I is he's passionate. Pick up the passion. The facts, you know already everything you need to know. In spite of all that, the wars go on and on. I can't claim to know how the human mind works. It's clear that people are capable of abstract reasoning, although my experience is trying to get them through the most neutral of concepts, things with no emotional charge at all. Just let's go 1, 2, 3 and do a little abstract reasoning. The result is the person becomes furious. People hate to do abstract reasoning, my experience, but they can. Alan Turing, one of my heroes, he basically invented modern computing and understood it better than anybody else has since, as far as I can tell. He proved that no computer and we're talking massively parallel, deep learning, self-teaching, quantum, brain the size of a planet, no computer will ever be able to do abstract reasoning. He proved it. Since a computer can digest any scientific principle, give me a scientific law and we can turn it into a computer program. And science addresses everything in the universe that is knowable, observable, recordable, testable. So abstract reasoning is not possible in our universe at all. So our brain is doing something that is scientifically impossible. That is proven, and even though people hate to do abstract reasoning and won't even follow out the implications of what Turing proved, yet the fact remains. People are doing something that is scientifically impossible. So if anybody says they understand how the human mind works, I will be very, very skeptical. I don't. I can follow the logic of natural selection. That I can follow. As you must know, if you don't, go back to those first 32 video scripts and learn them. You will never learn anything else as important as that. I don't care what you do, what you care about. Everything else will be wiped away if people do not understand that and take it to heart. Push the knowledge further. There are 5 proofs of the fact that you have to marry cousins. Enough people, and it's a lot, have to marry cousins, and they have to be pretty close, or your population will go extinct along with everything you care about and everything you ever tried to build or anybody you knew tried to build. At least learn to list the 5 proofs. Go through them until you understand enough to say, oh, that's the Sibley curve proof or whatever. All right. So since you have to marry cousins, there is a very plausible and proven among animals tendency to be attracted to near kin. So there's a selective advantage in that. So as I go on, I'm going to say xenophobia. There's lots of more emotionally charged words. Humans are loaded with a degree of xenophobia by natural selection. That's inevitable. It's not much of a stretch to think that the intensity of that phobia that it increases with greater separation. So the more different, the more hostile you are to the outsider, even though that's biologically unimportant. It's meaningless. After 10 generations, it doesn't matter. Now, after 10 generations separation, as you follow this ill-advised outbreeding, that's how extinction happens. It piles up there, not from a first generation or second or third generation of extreme outbreeding. So, are all humans xenophobes? Do we all hate outsiders to an extreme degree? Well, the term will be the Z word, all right, to avoid emotionally loaded content. The people who believe in the Z plan we'll call Ziists. Okay, are the Ziists xenophobes? Yeah, of course. There is a group of people that they regard as themselves, everybody else as outsiders, and they put um, much greater importance on the in-group than the other group. So yeah, it's xenophobic. All right. Do you interact with them? Well, if you interact with the United States government, if you're not a child and you're not way off in the wilds as a off-grid um, hobbyist, uh, then you interact with the U.S. government, even if you're not in the United States. United States government is so big, so powerful, and so your government's going to have to pay attention to them. And anybody who criticizes, who doesn't like, who objects to the Z, what do you call it, agenda, well, they're buying into the concept that there's a difference, and therefore they are xenophobes as well. So everybody's xenophobic. Whether you're for Z or against Z, doesn't matter. Everybody. That means that the word xenophobic, or the more commonly used term, is meaningless. Doesn't mean anything. You say, call somebody that word, and that word applies to you and me and everybody else on this silly planet. Well, I hope you don't find that too troubling. I don't care, because the xeno part, the them and us, that's completely arbitrary. There's no real meaning to them and us. We're all the same and we're all different. All right, so globalism is an agenda, create a single world society, a single government. How does that stack up with our political ideals? Borrow language from the Declaration of Independence. The political ideals that we treasure, those we hold most dear, are equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right. One rationale for the presence of globalism is, if there were no countries, there would be no wars between countries. Right. That is contrary to the universal history of humanity, and particularly of empires. Empires fight all the time. U.S. has been dominated by globalists. Here's a link to an assessment of our wars featuring Jimmy Carter. And he says quite plainly, he says, the United States is the most warlike country that ever existed. All right, so, yeah, globalism, indistinguishable from wars. We've got so much globalist pressure in our country, and there's a lot of globalist pressure elsewhere. All right, so how's that stack up against our ideals for equality? Well, you're talking military, you're talking rank, and that's inequality. Life, well, you're talking about killing folks, and that's not life. Liberty, nope, soldiers do what they're told. Pursuit of happiness, and now you know, soldiers endure chronic or permanent anguish. They are made very unhappy. So, equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not promoted by war. But ignoring war, what does it look like then, this globalism? To what degree is it consistent with our ideals? Well, equality. In a globalist society, only those with global interests can have significant plans. In other words, if you want to make a few bucks building vrobbles, I made up the word. I know I stole it from my youth. Okay, you're going to make this little thing, right? And you'll make a few and you'll sell a few, and that's great until people realize they're really nifty. Somebody goes to an entirely different place in the world, builds them for 1/10 of what it costs you to build them, and you're out of business. In a globalist society, you cannot compete unless you're that big super rich guy who can afford to go strike deals in foreign countries and load up a container ship full of this, that, or the other. So, equality, out the window with globalism. Cannot happen. Only the super rich um, have any rights at all, really. Life, uh, big society means you never marry kin, and that means you're killing babies. Sorry. Read the 32 lessons. Memorize the 5 proofs. Liberty? Well, if you're going to enslave people, it's nice if they're already in the same system, right? If people are all over the place, you got to go enslave these guys and enslave these guys, and these guys resist you, so you try to do a deal with them, and the other people say, hey, we want part of that deal too. You know, it's a handful. But if they're all unified, now you just get one little pattern, and it works to enslave them all. And then for pursuit of happiness, a society that has limited frontiers, like, a healthy country with borders, that society will limit itself, will structure itself the way it wants to, right? So if you got a bunch of people over here who think that doing natural things in the out of doors is wonderful, and if you must collect butterflies, be sure to release them unharmed. And the other people are exploiting animals and overcrowding animals into barns where you're raising them, and it's not much fun for the animals, but it's lots of cheap food for the humans, better human nutrition. You can see different societies will build themselves. Everybody does what he wants to do, and the resulting society is the net accomplishment of all those decisions. That is the pursuit of happiness. Everybody pursues happiness. All right, you bring in outsiders. They've been pursuing something else. They've been building another society. And to the extent to which you let any of them in, you're going to be destroying the accomplishments of the people who've been pursuing society, their own happiness in the host society, and the people who came from the guest society, right? Pursuit of happiness. Globalism is inherently destructive to the pursuit of happiness. Okay. So globalism plays right into the hands of the satanic impulse. Remember the things that Satan does? Well, globalism does them all. It would take me, I'd have to start over to go over. You got the picture, okay? All those things that Satan, or the satanic impulse, I don't believe in Satan, but I do believe the humans have a mind, and whatever that thing is in the human mind, exploited by the super rich, of course, that's totally against everything we care about. So given a global society and a few generations of failing to marry cousins, all the babies stop. Humanity dies out. There, the satanic impulse has the ultimate victory. That's why I call it Satan's windfall. No Satan, but sure a windfall. The world's strewn with the corpses of dead societies. Everybody's gone. Don't believe me? Go. You got some homework to do. Told you where to find it. Okay, I have zero personal knowledge. I read from the independent media the Rotherham phenomenon, as I call it, because I would throw up if I started saying exactly what I mean. That it's getting stronger, they say. Possibly as a source of blackmail. blackmail material to control politicians. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not. I don't live in that world. I don't think I could. Um, but I can make it some sense out of it to a degree, and that is that this criminal behavior is biologically unproductive. When you go with the Rotherham behavioral pattern, you don't produce lots of happy, normal, healthy, strong babies. Uh-huh. Um, I can't prove it, don't have the data, wouldn't believe data unless it's difficult. Difficult to follow. We're talking about the human mind now, and nobody understands that. As far as satanic rituals go, or believing in Satan as a real thing, I don't have any data. I think a prudent person would avoid things like that, like the plague. Remember, we don't really know how the human mind works. What is the power of ritual? What is the power of faith in something, particularly something that doesn't exist? Don't know. Well, that's the way it goes. Sorry I haven't got any happy news. And next talk will not be any happier.